Greetings, family. My name is Arlene Kahet, and I help people create harmonious relationships and also speak their truth. So tonight, I'm going to talk about how it is that, manipulation in a relationship is not going to work. So recently, I got a call from a friend of mine who recently got married. He has been married for 6 months. And he was specifically asking me for help for how does he explain to his wife that he no longer wants to be married anymore. Now, to give you some context, the person that he decided to marry, he's known her for 14 years, and they have a 13-year-old son. And so his motivation for getting married to her was to, according to him, what he shared with me was because he wanted his son to see a mother and father live together. And there were a number of reasons that she had stated that he decided to go ahead and get married to her. What I will say is that, during that time frame in which they were in that 13-year time frame, they had relations with each other periodically, and she herself was the one that was really pushing for the marriage. In fact, she was the one that asked him to marry her. Now, what I will share is that with this being the case, what has happened is that he is realizing something that he realized 13 years ago before his son was born, which is that they are incompatible spiritually, and even on just an intimate level with just basic communications, they are not getting along. And so he was calling me to ask what would be the ideal way to tell her that he wanted to break it off. And essentially what I told him was that, well, the most direct approach is going to be the best way. I mean, that there's really no way of making that break easily unless people are in that place of cooperation about that. But that aside, what he had to share was that he has discovered that her intent really was to marry him and then get him to convert to her religion. Now, her religion is something that is very important to her. And she was, I think, hoping that he would just be able to get brought in by the congregation because this particular institution operates like a cult. And it was very, very convincing that she was hoping that he would get drawn in. However, that is not the case. But when he shared with me about that, what really dawned on me was like the level of manipulation that had to go into that whole process of continually asking him and literally badgering him down for 13 years. And in addition to that, trying to get him to convert into a religion. And they are really on completely opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to that. And when that is something that's really important to you, the whole manipulative process of that taking place, that it brings into the relationship a great deal of disingenuousness. And it isn't the first time that I have observed that type of thing has taken place, because both men and women have done this to each other, and they marry each other for reasons that that are not really associated with the person's highest and best a good or necessarily their well-being. They are in that place of doing these things or trying to convince them to do something because they are wanting to have a particular outcome. But the thing is that with that type of manipulation, there is no way to really, really get to know a person. That is not an ideal space to create a solid foundation for a relationship that could be sustained over a long period of time. And it brings in this energy of resentment. And I can recall there has been a few other situations where the use of a child being born was a tactic for getting another gentleman that I know to be to get to marry the person. But the thing is that the temperament of the person is such that he just said no from the jump. Anyway, that aside, what I would strongly encourage people to do is just be honest about who you are. Be honest about who you are, and even being, transparent about your expectations of what a relationship will look like, and being honest with yourself about your spiritual beliefs, so that you are not in a place of trying to convince someone to be or do what it is that you would like to do. If that person does not fit that criteria of something that you are deeply requiring, then it is best to leave that person be, so that you can attract the person that you would most likely want to have in your experience. It's a really, really bad way to start off a relationship. And if we are aiming to have better relationships, operating in a space of honesty and transparency, not only with yourself, but with the other person, is the best way to go in order to really have your relationship operate in the space of love, appreciation, and acceptance for who that person is. Because if you cannot accept that person who there is, you are asking for nothing more than to create more strife for you and the person that you are interested in, if you are operating in a space of disingenuousness. Now, if any of this information has been of value to you, please go ahead, like, subscribe, to make sure that you are become more familiarized with my content. Anyway, family, may peace and power be with you wherever you go. Blessings, family.